everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. I am so excited for this one because it's an idea I've been sitting on for a while. I've been saving it for a rainy day, and I just feel like we could all use a little bit of humor right now. So what we're going to be doing is reacting to your BDSM hot takes and controversial opinions. This concept is 100% cribbed from Anthony Fantano and D'Angelo Wallace because I think it's a really funny idea, and I thought it would be great to see how it would work with BDSM specifically. So I asked you guys over on Twitter and Instagram to share your controversial opinions, so I will be responding to those now. If I agree, if I disagree, why, and we're just gonna discuss. All right, I'm gonna have it so over here, the text of what is actually being responded to shows up so you guys can actually see it. I'm gonna start over on Twitter because surprisingly there were less hot takes on Twitter, so it's not gonna take us as long to go through. But the first one I received was from someone who said, people who engage in BDSM are mentally unstable. I disagree with this one, and it's not just because I personally disagree, like the facts disagree with this statement. There's a study I found, and I'll link it down below if I can find it again, that has recently demonstrated that actually BDSM participants are even maybe somewhat more likely to be mentally stable than average. Actually, if you go through and you read the text of the study, if you break it down by which sort of side of the slash someone falls into, the most mentally well outcomes come for people who are on the dominant side of the slash. However, there are some negative repercussions, especially for male submissives, that are probably linked to things like not feeling socially accepted. So it really depends on what you're looking at. But generally speaking, members of the BDSM community are not any more mentally ill than the general population. All right, this one is from the Kinky Introverts podcast, and they say it's okay to top from the bottom so long as you're on a path of learning to let go of your control issues. And I agree, but I think it depends on how you define what topping from the bottom is, and I have an old video where I've talked about this before, and the stereotype of somebody topping from the bottom is like a bottom that's like telling the dom what to do and is being really like sassy and almost mean about it and really just controlling everything. And I do think it is valuable for people who are newer to the scene to have more input over what happens with their bodies, because that's how you learn what you like, and I think that's the safest way to go about it, where somebody's, just has more ability to communicate with their partner, feels more empowered to give feedback. But whether or not you see that as topping from the bottom, I think is more an individual definition thing. It really depends on how you see topping from the bottom. Personally, for me, I don't really think topping from the bottom is a useful term to begin with. So yeah, I think if somebody wants to have a scene where the bottom is more in control over what happens as a learning experience, that makes total sense. All right, this next one says, you can be an age regressor and be in a DDLG relationship sexually or non-sexually. And I agree. I am not really up to date with the current goings on of the age play and the DDLG world, despite what my pigtails might indicate. But yeah, I don't think there should be any conflict with that. Some people who are into DDLG age play, others don't. Some people do it sexually, some people do it non-sexually. It's all good. All right, this one says, you should not involve the public with your kink unless it's already negotiated. I.e., it's okay to do whatever you like in a dungeon as long as it complies with their rules, but not okay to take your sub out for a walk on a leash in public areas. I agree. How is this even a hot take? I feel like this should be common sense, but maybe it's not. I don't know. You guys will, I think by now, have seen a video I did where I talked about some issues that another convention was having with attendees going out into the public hotel areas and doing BDSM things there and getting the event in trouble and exposing minors and non-kinky people to their kink. And I 100% am against this. I know some people in my local community who are like, yeah, it's fine to like do rope in a public park, like in full view of people. And I'm like, I don't really know about that. Like, yeah, you can kind of expect that people aren't really gonna fully understand what's going on with like maybe a rope scene. You can call it like a performance, but like if you're full on like walking your partner outside wearing only latex with them on all fours, like barking and on a leash in public, like people are gonna know what's up, and I am just really personally against doing that. Like there are lots of ways of getting the exhibitionist need fulfilled if that is what you're looking for that doesn't involve exposing people in public. Like just don't. It makes all of us look bad. Just please don't. All right, now I'm gonna hop over to Instagram and I'm gonna read some of your hot takes on there. So the first one is, well, I've already kind of read it and it's gonna be a spicy one. All right, this person said, dating your dom/sub is strange. It's like crossing a line. I know it's common, but And I mean, I'm gonna have to say I disagree because I date my dom and we've been together for like 4 years, and the majority of people I've done power exchange with have been people I've been in relationships with, and I'm just, what line is it crossing? That's the part I'm having trouble with this, is like, what line is it? And I think what it really comes down to is the way that you relate to power exchange. And for some people, the romance is inseparable from the power exchange, and they couldn't imagine doing power exchange without the romance. Other people, having power exchange with romance would be really icky, it would feel weird, it would be crossing a line, and I understand that perspective. So I think we just have to live and let live and understand that other people have different ways of experiencing their kink. But I would love to hear more. If you're somebody who like just completely doesn't understand why a dom and a sub would be in a relationship with each other, I would love to know about how that works in your head, because that's totally outside of my experience. All right, this next one says that non-masochistic subs are also good subs, and I agree. Again, how is this a hot take? I feel like it should be pretty prevalent, right, Bandit? We agree. We think non-masochistic subs can also be good subs. Y'all are good boys and good girls and good slaves and good whatever titles you use. If you're masochistic, if you're not masochistic, you're all wonderful. I love ya. Give yourself some love, okay? You're all great. All right, this one says, I hear someone say that daddies aren't real doms. I disagree. What about you? And how do I phrase this? I agree with you. I disagree with the idea that daddies aren't real doms. Like, I don't understand what does that even, what does that mean? Because like, if you think about it, like D types, right? Big umbrella category, lots of terms. Dominant, somebody who is receiving power in a power exchange. A daddy can be one label for that. And so I don't know how that can be fake. I mean, there are certainly people who say that they're daddies in like a role play scenario in like your DMs without your permission on Tumblr, but like the concept of daddies as a whole, I don't think we can just, toss out and say, oh, those aren't real doms. That does not make any sense to me. All right, this one says, unsure if controversial, but the kink community is way over-sexualized, not just by vanillas. And I would agree, with a little star there for an additional note. So I think it really depends on what time frame you're looking at in the BDSM community and which aspect of the world of BDSM you're looking at. I think obviously if we look at like kink in movies, for example, a lot of it is just shorthand for like deviant sexual behavior, and so you see a lot of it kind of through a very sexual lens because of that. But if we're looking at the actual BDSM community, I would say since I've been part of the BDSM world for the last 5 years, there's been a lot of conversation about BDSM not just being about sex, not just being a sexual thing. And even I think within the last year or so, we're starting to see a little bit of pushback against that. I've certainly seen a lot more classes re-emphasizing the sexual component of BDSM, where, it's okay to have sex doing rope bondage. It's okay to have sex as part of aftercare, because there has been that emphasis of BDSM not being a sexual experience to the exclusion of people for whom it is. And so we kind of have a little bit of a ping pong back and forth sometimes over like which thing we're kind of talking about more, the non-sexual or the sexual aspect of it. But I think the image of BDSM as a whole, I think in general does have a bit more of a sexual connotation. All right, this one says, old guard practitioners deserve respect, but are also often gatekeeping assholes. A lot of people in the leather community are gatekeepers. And I'm gonna say I disagree based on my personal experience. Now, all of BDSM is very much made up of its own individual communities, and so what it's like to do BDSM where I live may be very different from what it's like to do where you live. And I have been to a lot of leather-focused BDSM events and conventions and classes taught by leather people and history classes taught by leather people, and I have not really seen a ton of exclusion. Like, I've more actually seen leather people kind of laughing at the concept of like, oh, these are like the rules for being leather and yada yada. Like, they're just like, nah, it's not that complicated. Like, we want people to be part of our community, and they're usually really excited to see younger people be part of their lifestyle. They want to be able to pass on that knowledge. They want to be able to pass on their traditions. Now, they might have different ways of like framing things or phrasing things, like going back to the last hot take. I think within the leather community, they use a lot more language that like I as an asexual wouldn't use to describe BDSM, things like hot and sexy and like terminology of that kind, which I think can be kind of othering for people, you know, who are more on the sex or pulse side of things or don't relate to BDSM in an overtly sexual way. But I haven't really experienced a lot of gatekeeping, except for people online who say they're leather and use it as like a baseball bat to try to keep people out of their club. And I wouldn't say that that's overall very representative of the real life experiences I've had with leather people. This one says, the distinction between being kinky and BDSM needs to become more clear as kink becomes mainstream. I agree. I've actually been sitting on a script about like kink going mainstream for like 6 months, and I still haven't filmed it yet because I'm not like totally happy with it. But I do think overall that the concept of BDSM, kinky sex, if you want to call it that, has become more prevalent, especially in the last like 10 years or so. And so more people are getting exposed to it. But there is certainly, I think, a difference in the mindset and the motivations of people who are engaging in like 24/7 MS versus people who like a little bit of light spanking during otherwise vanilla sexual activities. And while one person may also enjoy the other, or the person who gets started with spanking may eventually transition into MS, there is a difference there, and I think it can be helpful for a lot of people to understand kind of, okay, am I leaning more towards this thing or the other thing? Am I really more focused in like casual kinky sex sometimes, or do I actually want to have like a full-on BDSM relationship? Do I want to be part of the BDSM community? And I think having more conversations about what that distinction is going to look like will be really important going forward. All right, subs have a large part of power and control in the dynamic. I'm going to, can I be neutral about an opinion? Like, I think this really reminds me of a conversation I was having on Twitter the other day where we were talking about the phrase submissives have all the power, like in a BDSM relationship, which is something you hear all the time from like people who are kind of like vaguely aware of BDSM, or people who are just like kind of into it. Like, you hear it all the time, like subs have all the power, subs have all the power. And I made a video a couple years ago now where I talked about my opinion on that phrase. I'm not a big fan of it because I think that in a power exchange relationship, it should be based on egalitarian consent. Both parties should be equally consenting to the structure of the relationship, where other things are built on top of that to then make it unequal. So like, you equally agree to participate in a thing that then makes the relationship unequal, if that makes sense. I think when it comes to describing power exchange, the thing I've heard a lot from people is like, you know, you may have a relationship where like the dom has like a controlling share, right? They have like 51% of the vote and the submissive has 49, and the dom can choose to agree with the submissive or they can choose not to, and every single BDSM relationship does look differently. And I think just blanketly saying that these subs have a large share of the power in the relationship can be a little bit problematic when it comes to the dominant side of things and the importance of their consent and their preferences, because a lot of times submissives do want to do more than what the dominant is comfortable with. A lot of bottoms want to do more than what tops are comfortable with. It's not just this one-sided thing where like, I think people get this image that if submissives didn't have boundaries, then dominants would just run all over them. Like, a lot of times the reverse can also happen as well. I think it's really important that we equally understand that when it comes to power exchange, when it comes to BDSM in general, the dom and the sub, the bottom and the top should both have a role in the negotiation, in the fundamental power of the relationship, and in setting those boundaries. All right, this one says ABDLs are not littles. Diapers are for ABDLs, not littles. Am I crazy? And I'm gonna say I kind of agree with this. I think there is confusion about the boundaries between what is an ABDL, an adult baby diaper lover, and a little. Not everybody who is an ABDL identifies as being a little. I think diapers, though, can be used by both. Like, I don't see where there should be a boundary between, like, oh, littles can't use this thing, but ABDLs can. Because a lot of littles are also ABDLs. A lot of people who are littles like diapers for different reasons than ABDLs do. Like, I don't know. I'm not either one of those things, so I can't really say for sure, but I don't see why, like, this particular item has to be exclusive to, like, one group over the other. All right, this one says acting up or bratting just means there's something lacking on either side of the DS relationship. And I disagree. I think if you are coming from a perspective of not being a brat, it can be really difficult to understand why someone would want to brat outside of there's something being wrong. But I know a lot of people that have healthy, long-term, fulfilling BDSM relationships where bratting is a component of the power exchange, because it can be one way that somebody who identifies as a submissive kind of is comfortable with the way the power is exchanged, because bratting allows an opportunity to have boundaries reinforced, to have kind of the relationship tested, where you can kind of go, oh, okay, you do still, like, care about me, you do still want to, like, have this relationship, and I can poke at these boundaries and you'll remind me where they are. I think bratting is really complicated. It can be difficult to do well. I know a lot of doms feel like they can't really, like, handle brats. I know a lot of brats feel like they can't, like, fully express that side of them because they're worried about their dominant taking it the wrong way. But for the right people, brat tamers feel really fulfilled by brats. Brats love being reminded of their boundaries. They love being able to push buttons and be playful and have fun in their power exchange relationship. And so I don't think that means there's anything inherently wrong in the relationship. It's about finding what sort of relationship works for you individually. Not everyone needs or wants aftercare. I agree. And I think this is something where when we are talking to newer people about BDSM, we give them like this welcome basket of concepts. You need to have aftercare, you need to have a safe word, you need to do XYZ thing. And so that kind of gives people the misconception that you always need all of those things. And the reality of BDSM is a lot more complicated than that. I definitely know people that don't always need aftercare after every single scene. I myself don't always need aftercare after certain types of play. It's about what you negotiate for. And I think some people just assume that aftercare is always going to be a given, and that can lead to some issues when their partner isn't on the same page about that. So you need to negotiate when you want to have aftercare, and if you don't need any, you should also bring that up to a partner. Relying on concrete communication during scenes instead of just relying on a safe word. I agree. Again, this is very similar to a conversation I was just having on Twitter. And this also goes along with the last one, where I think we give this basket of tools to new people with, use aftercare, use safe words, blah, blah, blah. And I've actually made a whole video where I've talked about this before, which is like the trouble with safe words. And safe words are a tool. They are only as good as you allow them to be. They can be very useful. And I think sometimes, though, it is also a good idea to use plain English communication. I am a big advocate for that. I think there are many different types of play where it makes sense to do something where when your partner says no, no actually means no. And I've certainly heard of a lot of situations where, because people didn't negotiate that any other word meant stop except for their safe word, their partner went through an entire scene saying, ow, no, please stop, my leg hurts, that feels bad, really trying to communicate with their partner that something was wrong because they couldn't remember their safe word because they were panicking. And then the person goes, okay, well, you never actually use a safe word, so like, how was I supposed to know that I should stop when you were screaming at me, hey, stop, my leg's broken? Like, how am I supposed to know what that means? That's a little bit of a hyperbolic example, but yeah, I think it also makes sense to use tools that work for you. And if plain English communication is what you want, great. If safe words are what you want, great. Use what makes sense to you. All right, this is going to be the last one. I think this might be the spiciest, hottest take of them all. And this one says, kink doesn't belong at pride parades. I disagree. And this is something I've thought about making a video on for a long time, but honestly, it's kind of just a hot pile of garbage. Like, it is a difficult subject to talk about. And personally, I think that if we are talking about kink at Pride, it makes sense for kink to be there because a lot of kink is very much linked with the larger, especially gay and lesbian community. And a lot of lesbian women, a lot of gay men who were leather were at the forefront of the AIDS crisis. We're there taking care of the sick people when no one else would. We're out there doing fundraisers. We're protecting people at their gatherings and pride parades. Like, oh man, there's stories you can read about like the leather dykes and like how they would protect other lesbian women from, being assaulted by the police. And I think it absolutely makes sense that we would have kink at pride parades, but it depends on the individual pride parade because the modern pride parade is not what it was 20 or 30 years ago. A lot of them are kind of like family summer carnival things. And like, yeah, I don't necessarily think that you need to be out there like wearing only a jock strap, being led around by a nose hook in front of a bunch of 4-year-olds that are just like there with their family. I can see why that would make people uncomfortable. Personally, I think what makes sense is to have very explicit guidelines about like what is okay during certain hours or days of a pride parade. So maybe we have like nice little like daytime like family friendly events, and then later on during the evening it becomes more overtly sexual, more overtly kinky. But I don't think the solution is to like completely erase kink from LGBT plus history, because even back in the 80s when this was still going on, people were actively like literally ripping out photos of leather people from their events and were trying to erase that they were ever there. And I can't be for that. Personally, not for me. But these were some spicy hot takes, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your opinions and your thoughts. This is really fun. I like doing this. So I think I will do something like this in the future. I also had someone suggest that I should react to like BDSM TikToks. So we'll see where that ends up going. Hopefully you like this. If you have any of your own thoughts or comments about any of these, you can leave them down in the comment section below. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink and BDSM related subjects. If you really want to support my work, the best way you can do that is through Patreon. A link to that will be down below. That's what makes this channel possible. And for those of you who already support me over there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.